Today we're going to talk about how a single radical idea, what one man called truth force, became a weapon so powerful it could bring an entire empire to its knees. We are, of course, talking about Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, that's the real question, isn't it? You look at this man, so simple in his homespun cloth, and you have to wonder, how did he do it? How did he mobilize millions of people and go up against the most powerful empire on earth? The answer, you see, wasn't about fighting fire with fire. His weapon was an idea. Satyagraha. And let's be really clear here. This is not passive resistance. No way. It was an active, deeply strategic philosophy. The word itself comes from Sanskrit, satya, which means truth, and agraha, which means holding firmly. So, truth force. The core belief was that by holding on to truth, non-violently, you could actually awaken the conscience of your opponent. This idea, it was the engine for everything that came next. But, this powerful idea wasn't born in India. To really get it, we have to go back to South Africa. It was there, during his 21 years as a young lawyer facing intense racial discrimination, that he forged the principles that would one day free a nation. It was his laboratory. You can really see his journey on this timeline. He shows up in 1893 and is immediately hit with the brutal reality of the system there. Over the next 2 decades, he tests and refines his methods, leading things like the Volker Satyagraha in 1913. So by the time he gets back to India in 1915, he's not just a lawyer anymore. He's an experienced activist with a strategy that he knows works. So here's the key takeaway from that time. South Africa taught him how to fight differently. He basically created a whole new language of political protest. It was peaceful, sure, but it was also incredibly resilient and organized. This was a struggle that wasn't about breaking your opponent's body, but about breaking open their conscience. All right, so with this new weapon in hand, Gandhi returns to India. And this leads us to what is maybe his most famous campaign, the Salt March. Now, this was more than a protest. It was a stroke of absolute genius. Why salt? Because every single person in India, from the richest to the poorest, needed it every single day. The British tax on salt was a daily reminder of their rule. So to defy the salt tax, that was to defy the empire in a way everyone could understand. And just to put this into perspective, think about the sheer scale of it. 240 miles. On foot. It was this slow, deliberate march from his ashram to the sea. This wasn't just a walk. It was a national event, designed to build momentum and capture the country's attention day after day after day. And you know how it started? Not with thousands, but with just 78 people. He began with a small, disciplined group of his most trusted followers. This wasn't about a big show of force. It was about showing unwavering conviction. It was like lighting a single candle that was about to set a whole nation on fire. And the strategy was just brilliant. Every single day of that 24-day journey was planned out. He'd stop in villages, speak to huge crowds, and the march would just grow and grow. It became a moving masterclass in civil disobedience, and symbols were everything. That homespun cloth, the khadi, became the uniform of resistance. It was all building towards one simple, powerful act. You can just feel the electricity of that moment in these words from Jawaharlal Nehru. He called Gandhi a pilgrim. He saw that this wasn't just politics, it was something deeper. This was a movement that was capturing the heart and soul of the nation. And then comes the climax. After 24 days, after 240 miles, Gandhi gets to the sea. And he does this one incredibly simple thing. He bends down and picks up a handful of salt. A quiet, humble gesture that was, in reality, a thunderous declaration of nonviolent war. The day before this, Gandhi made it perfectly clear what this was all about. He said he wanted world sympathy. He was framing this as a universal struggle, a moral showdown between justice and raw power. He knew the world was watching, and he was putting on a show for them. And that one handful of salt? That was the signal. It was like a dam breaking. All across India, millions of people started breaking the salt laws. Ordinary people started making their own salt in open defiance of the British Raj. This one symbolic act had ignited a mass movement that shook the empire to its core. Now, the Salt March was a huge success, but fast forward 12 years. The world has changed. Britain is deep in World War II and its power is being tested. This is when the fight for India's independence hits its boiling point with the Quit India movement. On the eve of this new movement, Gandhi gives his most famous, most urgent call to action. Do or die. Just think about those words.
It was an ultimatum. This wasn't about protesting one law anymore. This was the final demand.
And you can really see the change in strategy here. The Salt March was this carefully choreographed performance meant to build support. But the Quit India movement, that was a direct challenge. The time for slow, careful steps was over. The message now was simple: get out, immediately.
The British reaction was swift, of course. They arrested Gandhi and the entire leadership within hours of his speech. But it was way too late. You can't put an idea in jail. That do-or-die mantra had taken on a life of its own. Even with their leaders gone, people all across India rose up. It was an unstoppable push for freedom.
So what's the lasting legacy of all this? Well, the power of this idea didn't just stop when India got its independence. In fact, the echo of Satyagraha, of this truth force, is still bouncing around the world today.
Just look at the reach it's had. The playbook Gandhi wrote became the inspiration for justice movements everywhere. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he studied Satyagraha deeply. The entire American civil rights movement drew from it. And Nelson Mandela in South Africa was profoundly influenced by what Gandhi started there. This legacy is absolutely a living one. And for Gandhi, this was the absolute heart of it all. See, nonviolence wasn't just a tactic you pull out when it's useful. He truly believed it was a fundamental law of our existence. For him, the way you achieve your goal is just as important as the goal itself. The means and the end were one and the same.
Which kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. What Gandhi showed the world is that one person, armed with nothing more than an unshakable belief in truth, can challenge the greatest powers on earth. So in our world today, with all the conflicts we face, you have to ask yourself, what power does that truth force still hold for us now?